Let's begin with a question most people avoid. What if your greatest emotional wounds didn't start with you? What if they were inherited, not genetically, but psychologically? Passed down through tone, pattern, silence, wounds you didn't choose, wounds you didn't even notice because they wore the face of love. I'm talking about your mother. Not in the surface sense, not in the sentimental way society teaches us to speak of her, but in the raw, internal Jungian sense, the mother archetype that shaped how you see the world, how you see yourself, and how you believe love should feel. This isn't about blame. This is about awakening. Because here's the truth. You will never fully heal until you confront what your mother installed into your unconscious. Not who she is now, not even who she tried to be, but the imprint she left, the one that still lives inside you. Carl Jung believed the mother was the first template of the world. She is the first home, the first God, the first mirror, before language, before thought, before identity. There was her, and depending on her emotional state, her boundaries, her presence or absence, she handed you a story. Not through words, but through frequency. Some of those stories were empowering, many were not. If she was anxious, you learned the world is unpredictable. If she was critical, you learned that love must be earned. If she was withdrawn, you learned that your needs are too much. If she lived through you, you learned that your identity is not yours to own. And here's the twist. This becomes your default story of love and identity. You grow up, but the blueprint stays the same, quietly shaping every relationship, every boundary, every version of self-worth you try to build. That's the mother wound. And if you never face it, you'll spend your whole life trying to solve it through other people. Here's something most people never consider. What if your deepest emotional habits aren't even yours? Your anxiety may be a repetition of her fear. Your people-pleasing may be a copy of her survival pattern. Your self-doubt may echo her unspoken disappointment with life. Your inability to rest, receive, or set boundaries may be her voice, replaying in your nervous system like a loop you can't shut off. This is emotional inheritance. And unless you recognize the origin of these patterns, you'll keep treating symptoms, never the source. Jung taught that until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. The mother wound is the ultimate unconscious force. Because it begins before memory, it becomes the water you swim in. You think it's you, but it's not. It's what you were taught to feel in order to stay attached, accepted, protected. You sacrificed truth for connection. That sacrifice may have been necessary as a child, but as an adult, it's costing you your life. Symptoms of the hidden mother wound. If you resonate with any of these, the imprint is active. You over-explain yourself even when no one asked. You shrink when you speak around authority figures. You caretake others at the cost of your own energy. You feel shame for having needs. You self-abandon in relationships, then resent it later. You feel unseen, even in close connections. You feel afraid to outshine, succeed, or separate. These aren't personality quirks. They're trauma responses to the unconscious rules you internalized about safety, love, and your right to exist. And they lead to a painful cycle. You crave connection, but you self-silence to keep it, which breeds resentment, which triggers guilt, so you silence again. That's the emotional prison Jung warned about. That's the shadow you must face to become whole. The 4 faces of the mother wound, and the stories they leave behind. Every wound tells a story, but the most powerful stories are the ones we don't even know we're telling. They live in our habits, our fears, our attractions, they repeat in the people we fall for, the boundaries we don't set, the needs we bury. And many of these stories were planted not by malice, but by modeling, by the most influential figure in our early development, our mother. Again, this isn't about blame. This is about recognizing the template, because until you see the pattern, you are the pattern. Carl Jung understood that to become whole, we must make the unconscious conscious. And the unconscious imprint of the mother is one of the deepest, most formative blueprints in the psyche. Let's explore the 4 core variations of the mother wound and what each one silently programs into your identity. 1. The absent mother, physically or emotionally unavailable. This mother wasn't there. Maybe literally, through work, illness, or abandonment. Maybe emotionally, distant, cold, numb, or overwhelmed. You could never find her where you needed her most, in moments of pain, confusion, or tenderness. The message you received: you are alone. You must figure it out yourself. No one will catch you. This becomes the adult who never asks for help, who doesn't trust anyone fully, who craves closeness but stiffens when it arrives, who avoids vulnerability because needing equals weakness. Your independence isn't freedom, it's armor. And behind it, a lonely inner child still waits for someone to notice they're tired. 2. The controlling mother, overbearing, hypercritical, or boundaryless. This mother monitored, micromanaged, or molded. You were an extension of her reflection, her proof. Love was conditional, based on performance, behavior, image. The message you received: who you are is not enough. You must earn your worth. This becomes the adult who performs constantly, who measures their value by how much they do, achieve, or please, who feels panic at the idea of letting someone down, who doesn't know how to rest without guilt. The drive may look successful, but beneath it is a deep fear. If I stop, I disappear. 3. The dependent mother, emotionally fragile, victimized, or needing parenting. This mother leaned on you. She made you her therapist, her rescuer, her emotional support. You weren't the child. You were the caretaker. The message you received: your job is to keep others okay. Your feelings come last. This becomes the adult who can't say no, who feels responsible for everyone else's emotions, who attracts partners who need fixing, who abandons themselves for peace, then feels invisible. Love becomes a transaction. I sacrifice myself, so you'll love me back. But the love never really arrives, because it's built on imbalance. 4. The idealized mother, put on a pedestal, perfect, flawless, unchallengeable. This mother was worshipped, maybe by the family, maybe by culture, maybe by you, because it was safer to idealize her than see her shadow. The message you received: your truth is less important than the image we must protect. This becomes the adult who suppresses their voice, who feels shame for feeling anger, doubt, or resentment, who avoids conflict at all costs, who feels guilty for questioning anything that looks like love. You may struggle to express negative emotion because it threatens the image. You may gaslight yourself before anyone else can. And the cost is authenticity. You become likable, but not known. Here's the twist. These patterns aren't always obvious. You can grow up with a mother who appeared loving and still carry a wound, because what's modeled is more powerful than what's said. If your mother never took up space, you may unconsciously silence yourself. If she avoided hard truths, you may now avoid your own. If she feared judgment, you may now hide parts of yourself from love, work, or even your own mirror. This is the real inheritance. And here's why it matters. Until you face which version of her lives inside you, you'll keep unconsciously trying to heal her through your choices, please her through your career, avoid becoming her while slowly turning into her. That's the unconscious cycle. That's what we break next. The separation ritual, reclaiming your inner space from the mother within. Facing the mother wound isn't about blame. It's about boundaries, emotional, psychological, and energetic boundaries between who you are and who you were taught to be. Carl Jung said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." And many of us are still carrying that burden through inherited guilt, suppressed dreams, unspoken rage, and the quiet voice in the back of our mind that says, "You can't." It's time to separate, not physically, but internally. This is the most important work in becoming whole, differentiating yourself from the internalized mother. And to do that, we need a ritual, a clear, intentional moment where you stop being the extension and start being the architect. The truth about psychological enmeshment. In family systems psychology, there's a term, enmeshment, a lack of boundaries where your emotional world gets tangled with someone else's. Their pain becomes your guilt. Their needs become your identity. And no relationship creates enmeshment more subtly or more powerfully than the mother-child bond. Why? Because in the beginning, you needed her to survive, and your nervous system still remembers that. Even now, decades later, you may feel fear, guilt, or grief at the thought of separating from her emotionally. Even if she's no longer in your life, even if she's passed away, that's how deep the imprint runs. But here's the key. Healing doesn't mean rejecting her. It means reclaiming the parts of you that got lost in her. The separation ritual. Step by step. This process is simple, but it's powerful. You'll want privacy, a journal, 20 to 30 minutes, and honesty. Step 1. Identify the pattern. Ask, what part of me still belongs more to her than to me? Is it your voice, your beliefs about love, your fear of being seen, your constant drive to prove you're good enough? Write it down. Name it clearly. Example, my belief that I must be perfect to be loved. This is the pattern you're about to return. Step 2. Write the story as it was now. Write a short letter or journal entry that answers, what did I believe about myself because of her? Be raw, be honest, don't protect anyone's image. This is for your liberation. Example, I believed I had to take care of everyone else's emotions, that my needs were dangerous, that love meant staying small so others felt safe. Let it pour out, don't filter. This is the moment truth begins to reclaim space. The reclaimed self, living beyond the roles you were trained to play. There comes a moment in every healing process that feels strange. It's not a breakdown, it's not a breakthrough, it's a pause, a quiet disorientation where the roles you used to play no longer fit, but the new ones haven't fully formed yet. This is the space between identities. It's where the old patterns lose grip, and you're left with a single, powerful question. Who am I when I'm not performing the version of me they needed me to be? That question signals the arrival of the reclaimed self. This is where healing becomes living, not as a reaction to pain, but as a conscious design. And to step into that self, you'll need to do something few people ever do. Break the roles you were trained to play and choose your own. What are psychological roles? From the moment you could observe, you were learning one thing: how to stay connected. As children, we adapt fast. We become whatever keeps the peace, wins approval, earns attention, or ensures safety. These adaptations form roles, and over time, the role becomes mistaken for the self. Here are a few you may recognize. The caretaker, always there for others, never asks for anything. The achiever, proves worth through results. Success equals safety. The peacemaker keeps things smooth, avoids conflict at all costs. The chameleon adapts to any room. Deep down, feels invisible. The savior fixes, rescues, overfunctions, feels needed but secretly resentful. The ghost stays small, unseen, prefers quiet over rejection. These roles helped you survive. But now, they're keeping you from being seen. And until you retire the role, your nervous system will keep defaulting to the old identity, especially under stress, rejection, or emotional risk. How to break the role and still feel safe. Here's what makes this hard. Your nervous system is still wired for the old script. If speaking up once meant rejection, even decades ago, your body will flinch when you try to use your voice today. If setting a boundary once led to silence or guilt, your brain will try to keep you in compliance, even if the threat no longer exists. This is why you can know better, but still act from fear, because logic doesn't rewrite programming. Practice does. Here's how to begin. The 3-step practice of role reversal. Step 1. Spot the trigger. Begin to notice moments when your behavior doesn't match your actual needs or truth. Example. You say, "I'm fine," when you're clearly not. You drop everything to help someone, even when you're exhausted. You avoid asking for something because you don't want to be too much. These are role moments, not self moments. Pause. Write them down. Track the pattern. Step 2. Ask the key question. If I didn't need to play this role, what would I do right now? Would you speak more directly? Would you ask for help? Would you leave the room? Would you say, "That doesn't work for me"? This question reconnects you to the self, not the performance. It brings the reclaimed you to the surface, even if just for a moment. Step 3. Do 1% more. You don't have to break the role all at once. That's not how nervous systems work. But you can lean into your real self by 1 degree in each situation. Say one thing more honestly. Pause before people-pleasing. Ask for what you need, without the apology. These are micro-revolutions. And over time, they retrain the system. The grief no one talks about. When you start living beyond your role, something surprising happens. You grieve. You may feel sadness, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you realize how long you lived without permission to be yourself. You might feel grief for the child who had to adapt so early, grief for the years spent chasing love that never required your truth, grief for the time lost performing instead of living. Feel it. Don't rush past it. This grief is sacred. It means you're healing, because you're not just releasing a role, you're returning to yourself. Who are you without the role? This is the final question of individuation. Not, what do I do now? But, who am I becoming when I act from my center, not my conditioning? Here's what that person feels like. Calmer, even in uncertainty. Clearer, even when misunderstood. Stronger, without needing to explain. More open, and more protected. You won't need to prove anything. You won't need to rehearse conversations. You won't need to replay moments in your head at night, wondering if you were too much or not enough. Because you'll know you acted from truth, not survival. That's the difference between a role and a self. The return test. How to stay free when the old patterns try to pull you back. Here's the truth most people don't prepare for. After every breakthrough comes a test, not because the universe is cruel, but because your system wants to know, are we really safe to change? You've done the work. You've separated from the old imprint. You've started choosing truth over performance, identity over role. And then, just when it starts to feel good, the old patterns show up again. A friend gets upset when you say no. A family member guilt trips you for changing. A partner pushes a boundary you just set. You feel like shrinking again. And don't know why this is called the return test. It's not failure, it's confirmation. Confirmation that you've shifted, that you're vibrating at a new frequency, and that the system around you is catching up. The test isn't there to punish you. It's there to ask, do you want to stay free? Why the test always comes when you change a pattern. You don't just change yourself. You change your relational contracts. Every dynamic you were part of was built on who you used to be. The version of you who overgave, the one who always agreed. The one who held space for others but never took any for yourself. When you stop playing that part, the people around you may react. Not because they're bad, but because they're confused. The script changed, and they didn't get the memo. Some may try to pull you back. Some may guilt you. Some may leave. Let them. Because the people who truly love yourself will rise to meet the new version of you. The ones who only loved your role will resist, retreat, or punish. This moment will show you who's who. And it will hurt. But it's also liberation. How to pass the return test. You don't need to fight. You don't need to defend. You don't need to explain yourself in a 15-paragraph text message. You just need to hold your center. Here's how. 1. Expect the test. Don't be shocked when old dynamics show up. Expect them. The moment you choose truth, the system around you will start recalibrating. That discomfort, that tension, it's feedback that your boundary is real. You're no longer vibrating in fear. You're vibrating in freedom. 2. Anchor your why. When it gets hard, return to this. I'm not doing this to hurt anyone. I'm doing this to stop hurting myself. Keep your identity phrase close. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Remind yourself daily. This is who I am now. Truth needs repetition to take root. 3. Hold silence as power. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Not every trigger needs a response. Not every emotional flare-up requires you to shrink, apologize, or fix it. You can say, I understand you feel that way. This decision still stands. We may see this differently. Mature identity doesn't chase understanding. It holds clarity, and clarity is magnetic, even when it's misunderstood. Emotional flashbacks. When the test is internal. Sometimes the return test doesn't come from others. It comes from inside you. You find yourself rehearsing old arguments in your mind, feeling guilt out of nowhere, wanting to retreat back into old behaviors, questioning whether the healing was real. This is called an emotional flashback. Your nervous system is reacting to a past fear with current data. It's saying, is it really safe to change? Or are we in danger again? Here's how to move through it. Pause. Breathe. Speak reassurance out loud. I'm not in the past. I'm not that child anymore. This is a new moment. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your presence. Let your body know it's not alone. Do one thing that affirms your new identity. Say no. Ask for space. Take a walk. Write your truth. The flashback will pass, and each time it does, your nervous system learns, oh, we survived. We're actually okay. This is healing, not dramatic, not overnight, but steady, felt, embodied. you'll still miss the role. Sometimes that's normal. There may be days where the old version of you feels easier, safer, familiar. You may want to go back, not to the pain, but to the certainty. That's not weakness, that's memory. But remember, your freedom is not found in familiarity. It's found in truth. And the more you live that truth, the more normal it becomes. Eventually, the role feels like a costume you couldn't believe you ever wore, and the self feels like home. The healed gaze, seeing your mother as she is, not as you needed her to be. There comes a point in healing where you stop asking, why wasn't she more? And you start wondering, who was she, really? Not the myth, not the projection, but the human, the woman. This shift is called the healed gaze, and it changes everything. Because the final tether of the mother wound isn't in how she treated you. It's in how much of your life you've spent unconsciously waiting for her to become who you needed her to be. Waiting for an apology. Waiting for a change. Waiting for her to understand. Waiting for her to finally see you. That waiting keeps you frozen in the child state. Even if you're fully grown, to truly step into your adult self, you must give up the fantasy, not of connection, but of correction, and begin seeing your mother not as your source of healing, but as the starting point of your own path. The fantasy we carry, every wounded child builds a fantasy. It's not wrong, it's adaptive. The fantasy goes like this: if I'm good enough, she'll finally love me the way I need. If I succeed enough, she'll be proud. If I stay close, she'll become who I need her to be. If I forgive enough, she'll change. And the most painful part? Sometimes she does change, just enough to keep hope alive, but not enough to fully meet you. So you stay, not in the relationship, but in the emotional loop, still rehearsing, explaining, trying, shrinking, hoping. That's the invisible trauma cycle. It's not always caused by violence or neglect. Sometimes it's caused by the constant, almost. The difference between compassion and collusion. To heal, you'll need to cultivate compassion for her story, her wound, her limitations. But be careful. Compassion is not collusion. Collusion is when you excuse her behavior endlessly, suppress your feelings to protect her image, take responsibility for her healing, pretend the past didn't impact you. That's not love. That's emotional loyalty disguised as maturity. True compassion says, I see your pain, but I don't need to carry it anymore. I can love you, and I can name what hurt me. I understand your wound, but I won't let it define my life. That's the healed gaze. It sees clearly, feels deeply, and lets go without fantasy. Seeing the woman, not the mother. Who was she before she was your mother? What did she long for? What did she fear? What kind of mother did she have? What dreams did she bury to survive? These are not excuses. They're context. And sometimes they reveal the heartbreak. She didn't have the tools. She wasn't given the love she needed to give. She did the best she could, with a nervous system, story, and trauma of her own. Seeing her humanity doesn't erase the pain, but it ends the illusion, it breaks the pedestal, and it removes the cage. Because the moment you stop needing her to be perfect, you can finally become whole. But what if she's still hurting you? This is important. If your mother is still actively toxic, manipulative, controlling, disrespectful, you do not need to stay in contact to heal. You can love someone from a distance. You can forgive without reconnecting. You can see clearly without re-entering the dynamic. Healing is not a performance. It's a boundary with a pulse. And your peace is not selfish. It's sacred. The most powerful act of all. There's one final moment that signals true healing. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It often happens in silence. It's when you realize, I no longer need her to change for me to feel free. That's the untangling. That's the moment the cord breaks. Not in bitterness, but in truth. From there, everything shifts. You stop repeating her story. You stop chasing her approval. You stop confusing love with performance. You stop mistaking pain for identity. You don't erase the past. You rise beyond it. The integrated self. Living beyond the mother wound. Healing is not about returning to who you were. It's about becoming who you never got to be because you were too busy surviving who you had to be. Now, after everything, after facing the imprint, confronting the roles, holding your boundaries, grieving the fantasy, and seeing the woman behind the mother, you stand in new territory. Yourself. Not the fractured version that belonged to everyone else, not the performance model shaped by need, but the integrated self, no longer defined by the mother wound, but informed by it. This is not the end of your healing, it's the beginning of your becoming. Let's make it real. What integration actually means. Most people think healing is about moving on. It's not. Integration means you still feel grief, but it no longer rules you. You still remember, but it no longer defines you. You still carry the scar, but it no longer shapes your story. It means your responses are chosen, not triggered. It means you can enter the world not from defense, but from depth. That's power, that's peace, that's presence. You'll know you're integrated when you say no without guilt. You hear criticism without collapse. You feel emotions without drowning in them. You disappoint people and stay grounded. You stop trying to fix others to feel okay yourself. You finally feel like your life is yours. These are not traits. They are evidence that the self is leading now. Not the scared child, not the obedient performer, not the overfunctioning protector, but you. How to stay in this space. Healing is not a switch, it's a spiral. You'll revisit lessons. You'll notice old patterns knocking. You'll feel the pull of comfort, fantasy, or guilt. But this time, you'll respond differently. This time, you know the source. You know the voice. You know the role. You know the cost. And you have a choice. That's the difference between reaction and integration. Awareness plus choice. When those two meet, freedom follows. Daily anchors for living whole. Here's how to keep the self rooted. 1. Morning presence ritual. Each morning return to your core. Who am I today, now that I am no longer performing? What does the healed version of me want to experience today? What part of me gets to speak, act, or be expressed now? Write it down. Breathe it in. Live from it. 2. Boundary reaffirmation. Once a week, audit your energy. Where did I betray myself this week? Where did I stay true? What do I need to recommit to? Write it, speak it, adjust, realign, no shame, no performance. 3. Compassion for the child, authority for the self. When old wounds resurface, meet them with both parts. Compassion for the child who adapted authority from the adult who now leads. Say inwardly, I know what this is. I know what I need. I've got you. Reparenting in real time. That's how the old self heals inside the new. And what about the mother? You may still be in relationship with her. You may not. You may one day revisit old conversations. Or you may choose silence. You may forgive or never feel the need to. Whatever path you choose, it's yours. You're no longer reacting to her wound. You're no longer trying to rescue her story. You're no longer trapped in the choreography of approval, guilt, or silence. You can now see her clearly and still stand in your center. That is maturity. That is sovereignty. That is integration. The end is not the end. Let me be honest. You'll still feel echoes of the old life. You'll still miss the role sometimes. You'll still get tired, triggered, thrown off. That's okay, because the point was never to become untouchable. It was to become unshakable. To trust that even when the storm hits, your roots now go deeper than the pain. To know that even when confusion arises, your compass is inside, not outsourced to her, them, or anyone else. You have returned to yourself, and that self was always there, waiting, not for her to change, but for you to come home. You will never heal through blame. You will never heal through silence. You will never heal through perfection. You heal when you tell the truth, break the pattern, reclaim your voice, stand in yourself, and now you have. Let the world meet the version of you who was never allowed to fully exist. Let the world meet the real you, because she is not a fragment, she is not a reflection, she is the source,